Everybody, we are back. It is Saved Online's favorite is podcast, favorite is channel, favorite is everything. We are back. You guys already know what to do. Hit the subscribe button. Subscribe. Hit the like button if you like it. Hit the dislike button if you don't like it. Leave a comment if you like it. Leave a comment if you don't like it. Also follow us on Twitter at the Mark John NFL for me, at mholder95 for Matt, and of course, pandasubs.com, discount code TDL for all of your protein and diet supplements and all that good stuff, all your needs there. All right, guys. So we are here. We're talking about doing a final Senior Bowl recap. We kind of did like a mid Senior Bowl recap on Wednesday. We're here doing a final one and kind of going over what we saw during the week. And of course, the game happened as well. So, I know the game is not that big of a deal, but it did happen. So, so we're gonna be talking about that. And basically, that's it because there's really no other Raiders news right now. Rob Leonard got hired, but
yeah, which nice, good to bring back. Got a little promotion with the run game coordinator title added to his name. So, but yeah. I do think that was a good hire to bring him back, kind of similar to Graham, where like you look at what Rob Leonard has done with guys like Malcolm Kuntz and Clavon Chason, just to name the first two off the top of my head. Adam Butler too. Good guy to bring back, because I think the Raiders D line the last 2 years has been probably the strength of the defense, I'd say. Yeah. Of the last 2 seasons. So good guy to bring back, and he's a guy that maybe could be a deco in a few years if something ever happens with Graham. Because who's got some head coaching interests over the last couple cycles. So
yeah. I mean, they did interview him for DC too, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they did. Yeah.
They did an interview for DC. So, I mean, obviously there's something there. I mean, if they have a really good year on defense and Patrick Graham does end up getting a job somewhere, then that is a possibility that they just move Rob Leonard up, right?
Yeah. He'll probably be a guy that, especially if the Raiders defense plays well next year, he'll probably be a guy that even if he doesn't get the Raiders DC job, he'll probably get interest somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
His resume is impressive, especially now that they're tacking on an extra title to him and basically getting him halfway there almost, if you want to think about it that way.
Yeah, because I looked it up because I wrote a Silver Linings article. I mean, the defensive line has 65 sacks, just the defensive line, the past 2 years. So it's been a pretty good outlook, I would say, to what he can do as defensive line coach and what the guys think of him. And he's been around for 2 years, has a connection to Patrick Graham from Miami. So yeah, I mean, it was interesting that Pete Carroll is keeping all the defensive guys. I thought that
it is funny.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, Matt?
I mean, I think it kind of talks about what I said during the season, where the defense I never thought was playing like that terribly. Like they get towards the end of the games where they just get worn down and then they kind of fall apart at the end. But I think that speaks to how the unit performed, and how, like, if you're even an outside perspective of looking at it, like, look, yes, the defensive numbers weren't great, but you look at the injuries, you look at how they actually played, like on tape, like they played pretty well. And I mean, again, Rob Leonard's a guy that I think you would have hoped, just based on how the Raiders D line had played, like you said, 65 sacks in the last 2 years since he got there. He was the guy that you would have hoped they would have brought back and would have retained in some form. And I think that's big for a guy too, like Tyree Wilson, who, again, we've seen the baby steps and whatnot, and you're hoping he gets his year 3 bump. He gets to play in the same defense he's played his entire time, and gets to keep working with the D line coach that he's been working with in the past, that has seems to have a little bit of a magic wand to make these guys some players. So I think that's huge for especially the young guys, like especially Tyree.
Yeah, and it gives a chance for a lot of guys to come back. I think like Morag and all those guys too, just bring it to DC, and then maybe they bring back some of the defensive line guys too. But I hope they go get Puna Ford. That's what I'm hoping for. That's my goal here. All right, so Senior Bowl. Right, Senior Bowl. We're talking about everything that happened at the Senior Bowl, doing like a little final recap here. Me and Matt were both there live for all 3 practices. Well, I missed the first, what was it, national practice?
Yeah, national.
I did almost miss my flight. That was exciting. I almost missed both practices, but I made it to the Tuesday one with the later practice. Kind of a slow week. I don't know what you thought,
Yeah.
Matt, but I thought it was a pretty slow week. The practices were just slow, as the best way I could describe it.
You didn't like getting the full team walkthroughs?
No, no, I didn't. I didn't like the full installs, especially on Wednesday. You know what I mean? Tuesday, I guess,
Yeah.
you do a little install opening practice. But on Wednesday, and then I'm doing it on Thursday too. They're doing walkthroughs in the red zone. The American team was super weird, right? It just
Yeah.
wasn't very. I said there was competition, but it wasn't as competitive as it usually is.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was a couple things at play. Just looking at like the draft class as a whole, I don't think this draft class is as talented. I think Daniel Jeremiah is like has mentioned it in one of his first mock drafts a couple weeks ago, maybe a week ago, where he was saying like, look, it's not the draft class isn't very top heavy. It's really if there's good players in like that 20 to 60 range,
Hmm.
where you can find some good depth guys and some good role players. And I think that's part of the reason why we're seeing some guys get pumped up like or hyped up in the class, namely a guy like Jackson Dart, who obviously with the quarterback situation being what it is, but I think you're seeing that at a few other positions where it's like, man, these guys aren't in a normal draft class like first or elite talents like they are kind of being billed as. Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M is another guy. He had a good week in Mobile. I thought he was one of the more impressive guys that I was happy to see. But even him, you look at him like he had 4.5 sacks in 3 years in college, and people are talking about him like a top 10, top 15, or excuse me, top 15, top 20 type of player.
Yeah,
Uh, Again, he played well and he moved up and it moved up for me, but I feel like in a talent rich draft class, like you don't see him get quite as much hype. And then on top of it, where I'm going with that with the Senior Bowl is that kind of obviously impacts the All-Star games. And then on top of it, there were a good amount of guys who like dropped out late. I felt like
yeah,
this year. I don't know how the numbers in front of me, but like a guy like Cam Scatterbo was supposed to be there. I think no, he didn't weigh in right. They put him on the roster, and then like the
yeah,
day before practice, they took him off of it, and he said he wasn't going to play. Alfred Collins is another guy that stood out to me that dropped out. He's a defensive tackle that I really liked. Those are the two guys that like stick out most in my mind. Who the Raiders would probably be interested and ended up not playing. So on top of having a down class and talent wise, there were guys that just didn't end up playing, and then on top of it too that we get every year, guys like Mike Green, guys like Stewart, who end up not finishing the week and only practicing a couple times because they played well. So
yeah,
yeah, it was an interesting crew down in Mobile this year. Again, defensive tackles, I thought this year, like, I mean, part of it was injuries too, but we're kind of a little bit disappointing for at least for what the Raiders are looking for, which is that run stuffer, like you're talking about the Puna 4 type, where didn't quite get it as much as we would have liked going into the week.
yeah. There was a lot of dropouts. So basically, the whole Ohio State team dropped out.
Yeah, that's also true. Yeah.
Yeah. So Will Howard dropped out. Looking at some of these guys, uh, of course, Kyron Lacey dropped out. Some of these guys said they dropped out and then they showed up. Like Landon, I see this. I'm just looking at the list. This Landon Johnson. Landon Jackson. He was there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I remember seeing that. Oh, ended up dropping out. And then, yeah, all of a sudden I see him out at practice. I'm like, who lied to me? Who do I
Yeah.
have to ask? Who do I need to complain this to? Yeah.
Yeah. And then who else? Xavier Watts, Gunnar Helm.
Yeah, that's right.
Um, yeah, and then the dude who got mad at Michigan, Jack Sawyer, is that his name?
Oh, yeah. The flag
Yeah,
planting. I didn't
yeah,
realize he was supposed to be there, but yeah.
yeah. He's supposed to be there too. So yeah, it was a lot of dropouts. So you could say the talent wasn't as rich, but it still could have been more competition. I thought they need to
Yeah.
go back to the coaches. Right? They need to go back to just make John Gruden the Senior Bowl coach at this point. You know what I mean? Or just retired guys like John Gruden and he's not retired, but guys that didn't get hired.
Yeah.
Gruden and like maybe I don't know. I'm trying to think of another guy like Wade Phillips or something. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, that is yeah. I mean, I do like they give like other people like opportunities to like run practice and put something on their resume. I'm curious to see how much it really matters, but it is like frustrating when like you get a coach like Bubba Vadrone, who was the coaching the American team. It felt like he kind of was like, all right, they're coming here to see me. Like this is going to be my time to shine and prove I can be a head coach. When in reality, people care about the 120 players that are in pads, not the coaches. Yeah. The national squad with Mike Kafka, I felt like was a little bit better, but
Yeah.
like I said, the American squad, like there were a couple times where Marcus and I were ready to take notes, and they're doing walkthroughs and full team drills, wasting like an hour and taking like an hour to do it. But that's a
Oh,
that's a rant for another day.
it was rough, man. All right, so let's get into some of these positions. I guess we can start. I mean, all the questions in here. There's a couple of D-line questions, but most of them are about quarterback. So, like, you got how bad was Milroe? Do you take? Do you think there's a chance to take Dart at 6? Is Moreau just a runner? So I guess we'll kind of start there with the quarterbacks. I kind of studied them a little bit more than Matt did because Matt was doing defensive line and linebacker for Bleacher Report. So the quarterbacks, I would say the last day they had a good day, but I think the first 2 days they were pretty underwhelming. Overall, that's why a lot of people are saying Tyler Show was the best quarterback there. You saw Dane Brugler say that, which I thought was super interesting, and maybe go watch his film, which is interesting film. It's interesting. There's some things that caught my eye when I watched that film. I was like, oh, interesting here. So, and he was talking about that he could move up to QB3. Of course, the big talk is Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart's the big, yeah. I mean, that Dane Brugler said. I didn't say it, Matt.
Damn.
That's what Dane Brugler said. He said that he's in the talk for QB3 from scouts, not from agents like Jackson Dart. But
I got a note on that later.
Yeah, so Jackson Dart was the big guy out of there. I thought that he was a little underwhelming the first 2 days. Didn't really do anything impressive. I thought the last day he did do some impressive stuff. He had some good throws. Like I said, the same for Jalen Moreau too. I thought Jalen Moreau was low key bad the first 2 days. I mean, a lot of people would say he was bad, right? The first 2 days, but after the last day, he kind of put on a little bit better. I thought Riley Leonard actually looked pretty decent out there. But of course, Dylan Gabriel didn't look bad either, but I mean, he's 5'10", so I mean that's gonna be hard. He's 5'10", doesn't I mean I know he had that 74 miles per hour throw that that
I
viral.
still need to see the clip of that throw.
I don't know.
No one has produced it, but I still can't. I'm not going to believe that until I actually see the throw.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that was about, but yeah, I mean, I thought he looked pretty decent out there. Dane Brugler pointed that out too. So it's weird because the scouts will tell you that it was Tyler Show and Dylan Gabriel performed the best, but then like the media and people will tell you that Jackson Dart was the best. So it just depends on how you want to look at it. But I think you kind of want to go with what the scouts say, in my opinion, and then what the media says. So, but Dart is the buzz right now. A lot of people like Jackson Dart. I've been getting yelled at about that. That's why I don't even really comment on Jackson Dart stuff anymore. And I have some thoughts. I just, I'm like, I didn't leave that alone. But I know, like I said, you didn't watch the quarterbacks too much, but what were your thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I think Milroe was pretty disappointing. Like you said, he had that one day on Thursday where you're like, all right, now you're finally starting to put it back and put it all together. And I think we talked about it on Wednesday. It felt like he was swimming, like they were working with him under center uh, on top of learning a new playbook, and it just felt like there was a lot thrown at him, and he was like trying to absorb it all, and it ended up drowning a little bit. And then in that last day, he kind of cut it loose a little bit and looked a little bit more comfortable. Then again, he goes in the game and he had a rough game too. So it was not a good week for Jalen Milroe. I think Jackson Dart, I'll get to my point on him in a second, but I definitely think Jackson Dart outplayed him, and for me, moved up above Milroe. And then he's in my own personal quarterback rankings, just with how he handled the situation and how he performed or outperformed Milroe. But the one thing I was going to say on Dart, there was everyone I talked to who isn't a national media, someone who has relationships with the agents, was sitting there saying the same thing of what am we missing? What are we don't get me wrong, he's not having a terrible week, but this all this hype was just seemed way coming out of nowhere. And the fact that someone like Dane Brugler, who I think I trust more when it comes to the draft more than anyone, and he's someone who I genuinely believe will just tell you what he thinks and not what or he will be clear when he's getting stuff from scouts. I think him saying that Tyler Shook was someone who is closer to the QB3 battle, and then someone who he thought he had a better week is more accurate than some of the other stuff from a little bit of the bigger names, because it was, again, I don't mean to like hate on Jackson Dart and say he was terrible, but everyone I talked to him, from what I watched, like he was okay at best, kind of a deal. Nothing spectacular. Third day picked it up a little bit, and I think he had a decent game. But yeah, the talk now of him like being like QB2 and stuff like that, and like being going top 10, like it feels a lot like the hype we heard about with Malik Willis and like Desmond Ritter in that 2021 class, where like this is a bad quarterback class, and we're looking for someone to try and come up and save it. And Jackson Dart has the arm talent at least to and the profile enough to help raise it. And I would not be surprised if on draft day he still doesn't go in the first round. It feels like a little bit. I think I said this. I don't know if I said this on Wednesday, or I know I said this to you guys in person. Of like, it feels like there might be a little bit of like scouts like using the media to try and like drum up Jackson Dart a little bit to get him to go higher than necessarily how the league actually feels, because he was still like often late, which is one of the biggest problems with him. He was still late in a lot of these drills where the defense is simplified. You're not seeing a ton of rolled coverages. I don't even think they can blitz in the Senior Bowl rules. Like it's very vanilla. And yes, while you're learning a new concept, or while you're learning a new playbook, it's a lot of simple concepts, or a lot of simple NFL concepts that should be easy for a rookie quarterback to be able to pick up. And I think that's one of the issues is, yes, I sit here and say those are simple NFL concepts that they're running. The problem is he has no experience in that because of the offense he played in at Ole Miss, where they did a ton of just half side reads, throw the ball where I want it to go, and screens and stuff like that. So that was kind of where it was like, man, like it feels like there's a genuine disconnect between people who are like legit just sitting here watching practice and what's kind of been pumped out there. Because literally, like everyone we talked to was like, what are we missing? Like, what am I missing? Like, it didn't make sense how much hype he was getting. But again, probably arguably the best quarterback in Mobile. I'll give him that for sure. But.
Yeah. I mean, because just to say, a lot of people were hyping up Tyler's show, and I saw that just wasn't Dane Brugler. A lot of people who were watching there, and like I said, his tape is intriguing, man. He's got a big arm. He's got a big arm.
Yeah.
I know, Matt, you're not a fan because he was there at Oregon, and you're like he's the backup for Justin Herbert, but he's got talent that is intriguing, and that's the thing with me. And some look at this quarterback perspective here is that, I mean, there's 2 6'5" guys that have talent, that are kind of in the back end of the QB3 cluster, right? Because QB3 cluster is basically Milroe, Howard. I guess I should put Tyler Show in there because Dane Brugler did. So Tyler Show and Jackson Dart, there's like a cluster, right? Who's going to be QB3? It's like a battle, right? With Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, right? And I think I just feel like the NFL is going to go with the big guys. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But I just feel like the big talented guys who can move, because Tyler Show can move too. Like these guys can run as well, right? And it just makes you wonder what they're going to do. I just feel like the NFL is going to go that way. But Jackson Dart does have a great agent. He has the same agent as, I don't know if you heard, the Cavender twins. They're from Gilbert.
Great agent.
Great agent. He's same agent as them.
I'd imagine the same agent as Carson Beck, or the same marketing company.
He might be. He had Lad McConkey, Brock Bowers, Xavier Leggett, Drake May. He has a great agent. So
what?
Go ahead.
What agency is that? Is that CAA?
I haven't looked it up. It's some guy named Jeff Hoffman runs it. Some business agency. But yeah, they're like a marketing agent. They're a marketing agency. That's what I'm saying. He's being marketed pretty damn well. But like the thing is the agency, man, the guys I just named, none of those guys went out of the second round. Like none of them. Xavier Leggett's second round pick. Who's the other guy named? Lad McConkey, second round pick. Brock Powers, of course. And Drake May went 3. So he's got a track record. So it might happen. I don't know, based on the kind of the marketing aspect of it. And that's what a lot of some of this stuff happens, but we'll see how the NFL feels about him overall. But I just feel like that Will Howard not being there actually might have helped him
Yeah.
more than it didn't. So we'll see how that goes with that kind of situation.
Two
But go ahead.
things that are I was gonna say two things that are kind of more just funny that I found. I just looked up the agency. They also have Angel Reese, who gets a lot of pub, and it confirmed that they do have Carson Beck as well.
Who's going to Miami?
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, he got Jackson Dart some like private jet deal. It's like historic or something like that, man. That dude is good. He's good, man. I'm gonna
Yeah,
tell
he
you
got that at Georgia, right? So they could fly him to go see his girlfriend every now that's once in a while. So while he's not watching film.
that. Man, is he damn good. So yeah, I mean, that's basically kind of sums up the quarterback position here. I mean, people asking, is Moreau just a runner? I mean, like Emory Hunt did the Malik Willis comp, and I kind of said that to you. We're at the Senior Bowl, and I really like that comp, Malik Willis, because I feel like he's not as, Jalen Hurts is more accurate than him as a quarterback
Yeah,
coming out, and you kind of see that when Jalen Hurts plays in the NFL now. And I think Malik Willis was just erratic. And I think that's kind of what Jalen Moreau is.
I
But
can see that. Yeah,
yeah, Malik Willis was great running the football too. But you saw what Malik Willis looked like this year with the good offensive coordinator. So it's all up to that. So I mean, if you want a Malik Willis, you shouldn't be calling Jalen Moreau a runner. That's kind of my point here. But you know how that goes. All right, let's get defense, and then we'll go back to offense after defense. So defensive line, because you got a question: is it a great year to get defensive lineman, Matt?
I
So
don't
let's talk
know. I
about
think
defensive
the
line.
the defensive tackle class is like pretty strong. I mean, unfortunately, there's not a ton of like nose tackle types. Like the best is probably Kenneth Grant, who I think I have like that fringe. Like I think I have him ranked like 37th right now on BR's big board. That's dropping this week.
Yeah.
So like that. Is he going to be like that tail end of that first round guy or the beginning of the second round guy? If he's there, what is it, 38 or whatever the Raiders pick in the second round? I would be ecstatic if they dropped him. I mean, he's a big dude who can plug up gaps against the run. I don't know how well he's going to transfer as a pass rusher, but he can move a little bit. I mean, those Michigan guys, they're the one thing they are good athletes, and they are freaky athletes for what they are. I mean, you think even a guy like Mozzie Smith, who not a great example because he hasn't panned out, but Mozzie
Yeah.
Smith can move, and that's why he
Mm.
went first round, is because he was 330 and could move. So I think there's a lot of good defensive tackles. The guy that I mentioned at the top of the show, Alfred Collins, I like him a lot. I comped him to Grover Stewart. Where
Yeah.
Grover Stewart, like if you watch his game over up in Indianapolis, like his best is a run defender. He's making his money as a run defender, and he'll occasionally contribute as a pass rusher. He's not like a huge pressure in every down type of guy, and I think that's kind of how Collins is. Those dudes that are just strong as an ox and can plug up the gaps in the middle. But there's a ton of defensive tackles. Again, more three techniques than true noses, which is I think the Raiders' biggest need.
Yeah.
But I think if you could get like a three technique in like the third round and maybe have him sit behind Wilkins for a year or two, because Wilkins is older than you might realize. I think he might turn 30 or he's 29 this year.
Okay.
Then you could get someone like that's like an Omar Norman Lott. There we go, out of Tennessee, who I thought had a pretty good week at the Senior Bowl, but needs a little work and needs a little time with his technique. He's a dude that you could bring in and for the time being for a year or two fill the Adam Butler role. Coming off the bench, and then if you want to reassess where you're at with Wilkins, I know he signed like a 5 or 6 year deal last offseason, but I'm sure in that time, the way NFL contracts are structured, the Raiders could get out of it or figure something out if you want to develop a guy from this year's draft class. So there's a ton of good players like that in the D tackle class, and I think you look at the edge rushers, a guy like Mike Green, he's not an option at 6. I think that would be rich, but
Yeah.
he was due to had a pretty damn good week this past week. If somehow Abdul Carter did fall to 6, if there's that run on those first 2 quarterbacks and for whatever reason one of those other teams passed, I don't see that happening. He's a great option to potentially step in for Malcolm Kuntz if they don't want to pay him in the offseason. So edge rushers kind of the same too, where I think those two are my top 2 right now. Nick Scourton from Texas A&M also play. Shamar Stewart, who I talked about at the jump, more traits than production and whatnot. But another guy that could shoot up the boards and at least be a good project for you. So there's the defensive line group. I like the defensive tackles as a whole better than the edge rushers, especially compared to past years, but there's a lot of good players in this year's class if the Raiders want to go that route.
Okay. So a couple guys, because I just was watching everything that stood out to me was the guy from UCLA. I don't know if you went back to his film at all,
Yeah.
Matt. I'm trying to find his name here. But it's like they
02,
called him.
02 is what they were calling him at the Senior Bowl. It's not easy to pronounce. So from 02 from UCLA.
Yeah, they're also calling him Femi Oladejo.
Oladejo. Gotcha.
Oladejo. I gotta get better at my Nigerian here, Matt. So, but because he caught my eye, and he was a middle linebacker, right, who moved to defensive end this year. So he's a raw player. But I thought he had a really good week, and then he ended up getting two sacks in the game. So you could definitely see how explosive he is off the edge. So he really caught my eye. Just as a guy that you could find like in the third round or something like that. Because I doubt that based on his. I mean, it depends what he does at the combine. Athletic and has this crazy athleticism at the combine. Who knows? But if somebody like in the third round that you can grab or something like that. And of course, you didn't mention Mike Green, man. Did you mention Mike Green?
Yeah, I was talking about him. I said he wasn't the option at 6, but he's like the edge 2 for me right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he had a hell of a week. Yeah.
Okay. I was just making sure. I'm over here looking at these guys.
Oh, I'm not. Trust me, man. I'm not forgetting about Mike Green. The way he put Josh Connerly on Connerly's ass this week. That was.
Who had a good week too, man.
Yeah, that was one of the funny things. Like I remember, I forget, it might have been Dane too, who like tweeted out like Connerly had a good week, but this is a great classic example of why you can't put too much weight into like what you see on social media, because that rep will obviously look bad for him. But again, he just went up against a dude who, if he had played that practice the whole week, might have been the best practice player at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. So people are asking about Kentucky DT Walker.
I mean, I had a lot of hope for him. My issue with him is he's the size of a nose, but plays like a 3 technique, and he doesn't do that well. He's 6'7" and plays 6'7". His pad levels just was an issue a lot this past year, and and it was in Mobile too. I think he said he had a bad back and then ended up pulling out of the third practice. But it was rough. If you saw the clip of little Willie, was it Willie Lampkin or from at UNC, like just basically stonewalling him at the line? Like, dude, you're too big to be getting dominated like this. Like, you might take a chance on him, but there was a lot of times this year where, like, in the first half of games, I'm like, okay, this dude's a monster. Like, when he wants it, when he's in shape, and when he's ready to go, he can be physically dominant again. He's 340, 6'7", 340, and can move. Got a basketball background.
Yeah.
The problem is he runs out of gas so quickly, and it just looks like, and his effort starts declining, and his pad level comes up. Then he's getting rooted out of his gap and double teams, where like he'll have the flashes that, like, if you see him, he's another guy. If you see him on social media, you'll be like, man, this dude's a stud. But then when you watch like the full game, you're like, you start getting in the third and fourth quarter, like, where the hell was the dude that was resetting the line of scrimmage by 5 yards and 1 quarter ago? So he's a dude who's been really disappointing for me throughout this entire draft process this past year, and it kind of continued in Mobile. His first day was pretty rough, and then the second was not any better. And again, left.
Yeah, getting pushed around by a 5'10", 270-pound center. I mean, low man wins, right?
I guess so.
Low man wins. I know you talked about Stewart a little bit. Give your thoughts on Shamar Stewart a little bit more.
Yeah, so I bumped him up quite a bit after this past week. He's where he struggles is finishing, and it's a lot of like the technique stuff. But there, at the other end of that argument, is there aren't a whole lot of guys that are 6'4", 280 that can move like he can, and he's pretty strong too. So he's definitely on the upswing. I still don't know where I land with him, because again, I do like to see guys who can kind of put it together a little bit more and have more production to feel confident and be like, that's a first round talent. Regardless of this draft class, that's a first round guy.
Yeah.
But he's definitely a guy that, like, kind of falls into the, if you will, different size, but just in the mold of like the Rashawn Gary of like the talent in college, or excuse me, the production in college is underwhelming, but the talent is there for sure. The traits are there for sure. In fact, when I first watched him, I remember putting down this note of like, I like this guy a lot. I think he's got first round talent if he goes back to school. And then
Yeah.
like a few weeks later, I keep seeing, I think I saw Dane tweeting out that he's going to be a first round pick. Like, okay. And flipping on the tape back again. And it's just, he struggles to finish. And he struggles with being consistent down to down, where I wish he would have gone back to school. And I think he definitely could have been that first round, no doubt, type of talent, but he's just not quite there yet for me to stamp. Still a very good player and had a very good week. Shut me up a little bit this week because he kicked some ass in the one-on-ones and did pretty well in the full team periods. I think his last practice, and like within like 5 plays of each other, got a sack and like a clean win on a sack, and then got a TFL, and that's in the full team, not just the one-on-ones. So he's definitely on the upswing for me, but I'm just not as high as other people seem to be. He'll probably go in the first round though. So
Yeah, I agree with that, dude. I agree with that. So do you see a question about running backs? So I'll talk about the running backs here, and then I get to the other questions. So what about the running backs? Anyone stand out? So the Raiders need a running back, right? I mean, that's a known thing. I mean, we can't go in the season with Zamir White again, right? I mean, unless you're a sincere McCormick believer, but he's coming off an injury. So running back class, I was really impressed with the guys there. I thought there really wasn't a running back that had a bad week. Devin Neal, really impressed by him. I'm a big Devin Neal guy. Definitely has everything that you like. He's running routes. He was looked really good, really smooth running routes. Looked really good running the football too. I was watching some of the Senior Bowl tape, and he was had some good moves there. That ETN, Trevor Etienne, I thought he had a pretty good week too. Definitely kind of somebody I want to go watch his film because I thought he had a good week, but he still feels more like a scat back. Same thing with like RJ Harvey. He just looked tiny out there, which is like, well, okay, he's really small and he's like 5'7". He's looks like he's 5'6". I haven't seen the exact measurement, but I don't know. It's definitely not close to 5'8" in my opinion. He's probably more 5'6". So that's the thing with him, is that there's a value thing. So I think that he's a little bit more of a scat back too. And I see people talk about Ollie Gordon, who I'm a big fan of. I thought he had a great week. He was actually voted as a best running back on the American team, I believe, or maybe no, the national team. I bet. So the best player on the national team at the running back position was Ollie Gordon. And Ollie Gordon. The thing is, Ollie Gordon is he's 6'1", he's 233 pounds, and so I put that's my biggest factor when I watch him. And he was out there running routes and showing a lot of shiftiness, and he has the ability to kind of just be a type of a steal, in my opinion, where he had that bad senior year in a bad offense, but the year before he was really good. So he has that pedigree of still having a lot of talent and ability to run the football. He can catch the football. The blocking drills, I think he struggled a little bit at the Senior Bowl, but on film, he has some really good elements of showing that he can block, and he's a willing blocker because he's so physical. So since he's so physical, I thought he had a really good week. So, those are a few of the running backs that stood out to me. I know there's some other guys out there that look pretty good. The guy from SMU, who's a wide receiver convert, he played pretty well. But I thought that the running backs looked pretty good out there. Yeah, because I know Matt did not watch any running backs. He was not paying attention to it at all.
I'll be honest. I don't know a ton about the running backs in this class, but Ollie Gordon was impressive in the few that I saw, and obviously him weighing in at 230 and moving like he does. That's nice to see.
Yeah. Somebody said I've heard of Gordon has character issues. I mean, what are those?
Yeah, he did. Didn't he get a Dewey right before the season started? Because I remember what's his name? What's the Oklahoma State? Mike Gundy was sitting there like trying to excuse it. He's like, I was doing the math. Like I did, it's like 2 beer or it's like 4 or 5 beers. I've done that like thousands of times in my life. Yeah, I think that's the issue. They want to be one of the issues, which especially with how the Raiders have had that problem since they moved to Vegas.
Yeah,
could be an issue. Could be a big issue.
Yeah. If he likes to party, I mean that's not my job to investigate. That's the Raiders' job.
I'm just telling you. Yeah, I'm just telling you what we see on the field. But
yeah, right.
Exactly. Will factor in. That will factor in for sure.
I don't. They're the ones the deep dive into that, but because there's a funny story about Justin Blackman, how the Bucks, they were trying to see if they're going to draft him, right? You heard the story? And they put a guy in the bar from 3 to 11 at Oklahoma State, and they counted how many times he came in there. I
Yeah, how
guess it
many
was a
drinks
lot.
he had or whatnot. Yeah, they had like a private investigator or like a scout just sit there like tallying how many drinks he had. Yeah, and what do you know? What was Justin Blackman's biggest issue in the NFL?
He liked them. I guess the Oklahoma State bars are pretty good or something. I don't know, man. They're pretty
Seems
damn
like a
good.
good party school. I don't know.
I don't know. All right. Yeah. Damon Martinez looked all right out there. I just think Damon Martinez is slow. I could tell how he's not very explosive. He's like a. When I watched him, I was like, oh, this is Dante Foreman, which you know what I'm saying. So it's
Yeah,
hard to it's hard to kind of say that where he would take him. So I think he would be a later round guy. So yeah. So all right. What else? What else? What other positions we got? What linebacker? Is that a need for
yeah,
the Raiders? What other positions of needs for the Raiders? Guard. I guess
yeah,
you want to talk about guards here. I do see how did the 5'10" guard look in the game? I don't know in the game, but I mean I was impressed with him for
yeah.
being how small he is.
He was one of the talks of the week. Like I said, like he like you just looked at him like I think the two of us were just kind of laughing. Like he looks like the JV player that got called up to varsity, but he's feisty, man. He was giving it to a lot of guys. He actually held his own pretty well. So I mean, size wise, I don't know how that's going to impact his draft stock. I don't really envision him. I'd be surprised if he kind of got drafted, but he could be a feisty guy that ends up sneaking up on people.
Yeah, yeah. I think that I don't know if he gets drafted either. And if it was, it'd probably be late, just be based on his size. And but yeah, I mean, he looks like he's a good player though. I mean, definitely
Yeah,
somebody that he probably has to take the long road, but I think I would bet on him making it just because his technique is really good. And he's moving guys that are, he's moving Deontay Walker, right?
yeah,
So there's
yeah.
obviously some power there, some strength, and maybe he'll get bigger, add some weight. Of course, he can't be, that short, not that short, but that weight, and
Yeah.
kind of get overpowered. You'd be a little scared about him blocking Dexter Lawrence, of course, but
Yeah.
you'll see him kind of be a guy that probably ends up making a team later on, in my opinion. But I thought he definitely showed a lot this week and showed that he could actually hang in the NFL. So yeah, so and people were talking about wide receiver too. Um, who are some wide receivers that are good there? I liked Arian Smith from Georgia. I thought he was pretty good out there from what I saw. I'm trying to remember some of these guys. I know like the Iowa State guys got a lot of buzz. Higgins and Noel, they had a
Yeah.
really good week. I thought Restrepo was a little bit disappointing in my opinion. You should
Well,
see. Go ahead.
I was gonna say he was like 5'10", 200 pounds, which is pretty damn thick for a slot receiver. Like
Yeah,
when I was watching him a little bit, I'm like, you're nowhere near quick enough, I think, to get by what your with your size at the NFL. So like he's gonna be a slot guy, but he's not tall enough to really be like your contested catch power slot type of guy, and then he's not
yeah.
quick enough to really separate and get open. So he struck me as a guy as like that. I think you're going to have a hard time finding your home in the NFL and finding your way to be productive.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what I'm saying? Like maybe he figures out a way to win more, but it like you went into the Senior Bowl thinking, man, uh he's gonna be the star of this, but
Yeah,
it didn't end up
he
that way.
was.
So as a Georgia fan, Arian Smith is a bum. I mean, he had a good week though, man. I don't know what to tell you. He did. I thought, yeah, yeah.
He's
So
got to catch the ball. That's the only thing.
yeah, he's got
He
drop
can,
issues. He's
yeah,
got drop issues. That's why he says he's a bum because he's probably seen Arian Smith, the ball hit Arian Smith in his chest and he's wide open or something like that. But he had a good week, man. He did. He was able to, he showed some talent to get open.
lightweight speed, baby.
Yeah, exactly, man. And like I said, the Iowa State guys, who I think they're probably like third round picks. I think they really showed they have some skills out there. There's some other guys. Let me look at the
Betch,
American team here. Who else was good wide receivers here?
Jack
So
Betch from TCU.
oh yeah, Betch. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, good
Of
contested catch
course.
guy.
Yeah, yeah, he had a really good week too. Because the guys who look really good out there were the tight ends. They look really good out there too. So that's just crazy. But I mean, we can't talk about tight ends anymore here. We got enough. Let's be honest. They looked really good. I see people asking about cornerback too. I thought the corners were decent out there. I'm intrigued by a couple guys that are just based on measurements, and Pete Carroll has a love for a 32-inch arm corner. It's not it's not something that's something that we all know. And I thought Azariah Thomas, who was like, he would make like 3 great plays and then he would get beat 3 times. And then he would make 3 great plays and then he would get beat 3 times. So like he had like a one hand interception, and then he would get beat again. It was weird, right? So you wonder about his what I would say, his like ability to kind of guard a shifty wide receiver. Like you can't put him in the slot or anything, but going against a fade, he is a stud. I'll say that.
Yeah.
But like, not every route's a fade out there, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult. And then of course there's Tommy Hill, who has 33-inch arms, and his arms basically go to his knees. That I think are 2 guys that I find are intriguing just because of the skill set. But I thought the corners were kind of up and down. They weren't too like that impressive in my opinion.
The 2 guys that really stood out to me, one and both of them crossed the threshold. Trey Amos from Ole Miss. I'm looking at it right now, about 6 foot or 6 foot flat and a half, and then 32-inch arms. And he was pretty good until he got injured on what was it, Wednesday? But I thought he had a pretty good week. And then Darian Porter out of Iowa State, 6'2" and a half, and then 33.25-inch arms. And he also had the top speed of the day. It was as a gunner. But just kind of goes to show, like, big dude with long arms that can run and has makeup speed. I don't know a ton about his game. I think he struggles with the typical bigger, smaller, or bigger, taller corners. He struggles getting in and out of his breaks on the sharp breaking routes. But
yeah,
you got long arms and you can run a little bit. You can make up for it every now and again. So he's definitely a guy to keep tabs on because he fits Pete Carroll's type, and again can run. He's kind of like almost like the Tyreek Woolen of this year's draft class.
Yeah, and you're right, Kenny. I did forget about Tez. Tez Johnson had a good week. He did. He couldn't be guarded. I went into the week knowing that he would do that, but I also thought Restrepo was going to do what he was doing, which he didn't, which is kind of disappointing. So
the only difference is Tez is like 40 pounds lighter.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Was Savion Williams out there? That's what I was trying to figure out why you're saying that. Yeah, a lot of these guys I think people are talking about at the East-West Shrine game, which is the battle here. We got the blood feud that we got going here between the Senior Bowl and
the All-Star games. Yeah,
the All-Star game. The All-Star game battles are starting, man. We got beef. We got All-Star game beef coming out here. So it's a good question. Would you guys say this is a team building draft class? Very few superstar X factor talent in this class.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good assessment. This goes to what I was saying too about Jeremiah's point of top end of the talent pool isn't great, but there's a good cluster of guys that could fit into that team building aspect from like 20 to 60 range. So yeah, probably pretty accurate.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean the Raiders are a good spot picking at 6 because I mean they are going to get one of those players regardless. I mean if they, if one of the quarterbacks don't fall to them, which Cam Ward's getting the buzz, but Shadur Sanders, he's getting mocked to the Raiders a lot at 6, so there still is that possibility of them drafting Shadur Sanders. But if they don't get Shadur Sanders, I think that they can grab one of the I would say some
Premier
blue chip
talents.
talent,
Yeah,
blue chip talent, the
Yeah.
blue chip prospects there. Man, if people are calling Jalen Monroe Taysom Hill, man, God, I don't know. It's kind of, I'm not gonna. I don't want to stick up for Jalen Monroe too much, but it's just this stuff.
He was hard to defend this year, at least.
Yeah. He was hard to defend for sure. Has anyone who Nash Hutmacher? I think I said that name right.
I think that's a troll. Nash Hutmacher.
Oh man, Will Johnson. Because I guess this is about Will Johnson. how good is Michigan cornerback Will Johnson on film? Have you dove into Will Johnson a little bit?
Yeah, I watched him over the summer, and it was some of the cleanest tape I've watched. I
Yeah,
don't know if he's got like character concerns or if it's people getting holding like the injury against him. But if he falls at 6, I you got to go with the quarterback because again, we've talked about it all off season so far. Like
yeah,
you got to take one of those guys because the position is that important, and the Raiders are so desperate. But Will Johnson would be the guy that I'm like, you know what? If they pass on a Shador Sanders or hopefully not Cam Ward because I do like Cam Ward. If they pass on a quarterback at 6 and they have the option, I would hope it would be Will Johnson. His tape this coming into this year was about as clean as can be. Like a legit player, and it has ball skills, like can be sticky in coverage, like pretty much everything you'd want in a corner. I haven't dove into tape that much this year. I'll do that
yeah,
later,
yeah.
but
Me
focus
too.
on the quarterbacks and my stuff with BR. But yeah, I don't he seems to be losing steam, and I don't know why.
I,
What he played this year. Again, I haven't done the deep dive, but when I saw from the broadcast tape, when he played, he was good. I think he had 2 pick sixes, right, something like that,
yeah,
in
yeah, I'm
like
about to
6
look it up.
games.
Yeah, yeah, because I think the worry is that he's not like a premier athlete, which I think that's the worry there. That since he's not a premier athlete right now, that there's a little bit of worry there. I guess I'm looking at his PFF stats here. I guess there is just a little bit of struggles on tape, but I mean, there's just not a lot of targets. He's getting like 3 targets a game. He got
Yeah,
targeted 9 times against Arkansas State. Got some balls, man. They were like, you know what? Let's see how
he
good
ain't
you
that
are, Will.
good. He ain't that good. We'll test him.
I mean, and I mean, they had 9. The most targets he had was 9, and then Fresno State. I mean, these teams had some. Everybody else,
I
Texas,
love it
they're
when
like,
the
we ain't.
small school is just like we're gonna make him prove it. Nobody throws his way. It's like, oh shit! Now he's taking picks back to the house.
That's hilarious because he did get a pick against Fresno State. He got a pick against Fresno State. Um,
Trying to figure it.
yeah, yeah. Arkansas. I don't know who. I got to check out who his wide receiver from Arkansas State is because they actually did pretty good against him. But like USC tried to test him, he picked him and ran it back for a touchdown. I think or something like that, or maybe it was like a fumble or something. I don't know, but yeah, he's got some good film. So I want to check him out. And then he got hurt, and that kind of put their defense in a bind. But some of these grades, I guess, probably the grades that he got, getting from PFF and all this stuff, and just the lack of athleticism people are perceiving with him is probably a big reason why he's falling.
Yeah,
So
I mean, we'll
yeah,
see at the combine. So
yeah, yeah. Nick Nash.
wide receiver from San Jose State. I don't
Yeah,
know a ton about him. I think he's more of a late round guy. I think he was one of those guys. He put up good numbers, but I think he benefited from playing against inferior comp.
yeah, man, yeah, man. I gotta watch Arkansas State throwing him 9 times is hilarious. And then like see like USC throw at him like 3. They're like, we're not throwing at him. Arkansas State was like, you know what?
We're gonna
That
test him.
that's hilarious to me. I don't know why. Are they better, sir, to take a blue chip at 6 or trade back and stack more top 100 picks?
Is it Will Johnson?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on who. Like if it like I do like the guy, but I don't know. I get a little bit of reservations with McMillan from Arizona, where like I wouldn't mind like if they traded back and got more in top 100. But if Will Johnson's there, I'd love to see Will Johnson.
yeah. Yeah, me too, man. Me too. I mean, I did see somebody talk about how Mason Graham will have some trouble in the NFL because I guess he does have short arms, but his tape
He
is
does,
just
but
crazy.
it's one of those ones where I'm not concerned about it.
Yeah,
My comp for him is Christian Wilkins.
uh, yeah. Because I mean, what are your thoughts on Mason Graham? Because I know you've watched Mason Graham. I mean, you're doing defensive line for Bleacher Report.
Yeah, Mason Graham would be if Mason Graham had more length, he would be up there with Jalen Carter as one of the best defensive tackle prospects I've watched. I mean, his game like he's like 315 and quick. Put it that way. Like he can win with power, he can win with finesse. He's good against double teams. He can hold up and make plays against the run. Like he can get penetration. Like he can do it all. The only knock on him is that he doesn't have arm length, and we're hitting that time of year where we want to overthink things. I think a little bit too much with these good players. I think I made the joke to you, Marcus. Like we get so much draft fatigue with a guy like Mason Graham because we've been talking about him being the marquee player since basically last April when last year's draft ended. That we get to this point where we're like, we know this guy's a stud. We've seen all the film that he's a stud, but what if he isn't good?
Yeah.
And we just want to cling on like one thing. Like he's a guy that like his arm length wasn't an issue in college. Like I've seen it and with other guys where I'm not as concerned about it. Now we'll see what he does measure in at the combine. If it's real low, okay, then maybe we get some more pause and I can back off he's the best guy since Jalen Carter. But yeah, I'm pretty convinced. I feel pretty confident that Mason Graham is a top 3 player in this draft class and maybe top 2.
Yeah, Daniel Jeremiah has him 4th and doesn't say a bad thing about him in his scouting report. So yeah, he's a stud. But yeah, it's more about what you're saying, which we start picking these guys apart. We start just looking at them. I know to talk about Ty Robinson. I know that Ty Robinson fooled you because that was a funny story.
Yeah, so Ty Robinson, when I watched him against Colorado, I'm like, this dude is legit. He's got good size. Like, I'm like, holy hell, this guy's gonna be a player. And I watched him more, and I'm like, oh no, it was Colorado's O-line. And this year at the Senior Bowl, this week at the Senior Bowl, confirmed that it was not a good week for him. He's dropping.
Yeah. All right, so we get some couple more questions, guys, and then we'll get out of here. Is if not Ward or Sanders, who do you think the Raiders get and what round? And also, who do you think they pick at 6? So quarterbacks, this is more of a quarterback question. So I mean, we already talked about Will Johnson at 6, of course. I mean, there's the crazy scenarios like Travis Hunter falling. There's crazy scenarios, right? People like Travis Hunter's too skinny, what you're talking about. I don't know where to play him. He's too skinny. You know what I'm saying? Like those type of things. Maybe Hunter doesn't have the best, it's a long process. We got till April here, right?
Yeah.
So it's a long process. But I think they're gonna get a great talent at 6. Maybe they go McMillan, that'd be crazy, but it's just all those things are there. But with quarterback, I don't know. It's gonna be tough. I mean, because if they don't get Sanders right at 6, who I think is their target, I want to talk about Will Johnson and those guys, but Tom Brady loves him George Sanders, and Tom Brady is, rumored to be running the show, right? So that's gonna be interesting there. But you get to 39. I mean, who do you take? I mean, do they fall in love with Jackson Dart? I mean, that's a possibility, right? Do they like Will Howard? It all depends, man. That's what I'm saying. There's it's a clusterfuck of QB3s here. And we don't know who the Raiders QB3 is.
It's like 8 QB3s.
And there's gonna be like 8 QB3s as we get longer and longer to the process, right? There's probably be a tweet in sometime in March after the combine how Riley Leonard's QB3. Okay, so it's gonna get crazy with the third quarterback, right? But you just hope the Raiders don't get crazy and take Jackson Dart or something like at 6, because that would be crazy to me. I feel like that would be a reach of epic proportions. But some people would disagree with that. But I just think it would be really bad. But at 39, it wouldn't bother me as much as they took Jackson Dart. I still think it'd be a little rich for me, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'd rather like trade back in the second round if that's their plan. Like trade back in the second round, kind of fill out where he's going to go. Trade back in the second round, get more picks, and then maybe take him like at 45 or something. Not even like 50 or something like that. I'd feel a lot better about it. It's just like at 39, you're getting first round leftovers, so you would consider him a first round leftover if you're taking him in there instead of like getting into the actual depth of the second round. But I wouldn't be too bothered by it. But I just I haven't got to these rankings yet because I'm about to start grading these guys and finish up my grades on some of them and watch some more Ward and watch some more Sanders and get some more deep dive into these guys before I start finishing my grades on the quarterbacks. But it's a huge clusterfuck of QB3s. So we're at this point where it all depends on what the Raiders scouts see and what they decide. You know what I mean? So all right. What else we got? So I saw a couple questions about, is Darrell Bevel going to be the OC, our next OC? And then I saw another one about how you're feeling about the offensive coordinator search. So thoughts, Matt?
I mean, really hope it's not Bevel. But yeah, I don't know. I've been inundated with Senior Bowl stuff in the draft to pay too much attention to that. So they hired or they brought in, what's the guy's name? I'm drawing a blank. Is it Gerard Johnson? Is that it?
Yeah.
Is that him?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brought in him too. I don't know much about him. Still haven't interviewed the guy that I've been pounding the table for in Slowick, but
I mean, they interviewed his quarterback coach.
yeah, that was the weird thing to me. I'm like, okay, so they'll interview the Texans quarterback coach, but not Slowick. But yeah, I don't have many thoughts on it. It's probably going to be Daryl Bevel. I feel like it's what the signs point to at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean they have to do the Rooney Rule type of stuff. So, uh, yeah, it's that's gonna be the mix in there. But I think it's the Bevel at the end of the day too. So, you know what I mean? Like it's I don't know. Yeah, I don't get too excited about him, but yeah, I don't know, man. Jihad Campbell. Don't you like Jihad Campbell?
Yeah, I like him a lot. He can fly. I'd like him at 39 too. I think that's about where I have him following. He can fly. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Tremaine Edmonds. He doesn't have Edmonds' size, but he's like young. Like he's not even 21 yet. Can run and has like potential against to be a better run defender. He's just got to get bigger and stronger. But yeah, he's a guy that I like a lot. He can move at linebacker. He fits your prototypical linebacker type. He kind of his rise reminds me a lot of like Edrin Cooper, who was the second round pick and linebacker one in the this past year's draft, and Cooper ended up playing pretty damn well for the Packers this past year. And
Mm.
their games are similar, and like they kind of had that similar rise of like coming into the season, we didn't know much about them, and then all of a sudden, like they're in the linebacker one discussion primarily because they can fly.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Chip Kelly as OC. I mean, I don't know about that. Chip Kelly would. I think he should stay at Ohio State. Stay in college, Chip. Stay in college. Get that college money. It's probably pay you a lot more, anyways. Uh, so the meta question: how does the Senior Bowl work? Do you guys just stand around and watching and people take notes? Do you get any interesting info from talking to scouts from teams and stuff? I mean, we aren't really insiders, so I mean, we're not in the Renaissance Hotel, you know what I'm saying, getting drinks with those guys. You gotta have some special privileges to kind of get in some of these places. The combine is more where we hear stuff, like for
Yeah.
the average guy like me will hear something, you know what I mean, talking to people. So the combine is what that was that for. But yeah, so yeah, man. I guess he was spotted with Chip Kelly in SoCal today. So
Who's that?
Pete Carroll was in with Chip Kelly in SoCal.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Like if not him, who hires? It's gonna be Bevel. So I still think it's gonna be Bevel. We'll see. Last couple questions here. Was there ever a player at the Senior Bowl that had y'all hyped up?
I guess Mike Green this year. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
for me.
yeah, yeah. I think so. Um, Mike Green. I mean, I liked Ollie Gordon this week, but you know, I guess he's a partier, so we'll see about that. And then, yeah, and then yeah, Devin Neal probably. I like the running backs this week. That's what got me hyped this most. It's a great running back class for sure. I think that's it, man. I don't know any other questions. I don't know who Ron Moore.
Oh yeah, he's kind of a mid-round guy. I think he's more like a day three guy. He's had an injury history, if I remember correctly, but he's a strong safety type.
Yeah. All right. So these are my last two questions here. I'm sorry for guys. I ended up missing your question. Was there anyone last year that showed out the Senior Bowl but ended up actually being good?
I mean, Bo Nix and Michael Penix were awful last year and ended up being good. Um,
The Senior Bowl last year is a good damn question. Who ended up being really good? Probably like Jackson Powers Johnson.
oh yeah, that's a good one. JPJ, we got a ton of buzz. Yeah,
Yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. Um,
yeah,
yeah. So
he's a
yeah,
really good example. I mean, he didn't even get a boost from it because I think the injury history kind of pushed him into the second round. Because I remember after it, people were talking about him being a potential first round guy, and then I think he ended up getting nicked up and had an injury history a little bit at Oregon too, and he ended up sliding in the second. But yeah, he was a dude who was an absolute stud last year, and then obviously ended up having a pretty good rookie year, I think. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. What's wrong with Chip Kelly's OC? Not like he's a coach. I mean, his offense just didn't work in the NFL after a while because it's very simple.
Yeah.
That's why. It's not creative. Everybody
I
knew.
saw Ted Wynn talking about this. One of the issues with because it was in relation to the Texans. One of the issues they said the Texans had with Slowick was the protection schemes were too simple, and that's basically what you get with Chip Kelly.
Yeah.
He's much more innovative. He's like does some innovative stuff in like the running game, but he's not like great. He's not like great in like the passing game when it comes to protection, which I feel like you kind of need to be if you're going to have a Aiden O'Connell at quarterback, who's not kind of can be a sitting duck back there and not mobile, or a rookie who, not going to be the fastest getting through his reads in year one. But,
Yeah, for sure. Shiloh Sanders, well, he's East West Shrine, wasn't he?
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't see much hype about him.
Yeah, I mean, I know he had a good game, but they're hating on him all week. It's a good one. Let's end it on this one. End it on this one. So, what do you think of Walter? I think he means Nolan, right? I think he's talking about.
I was going to say, I don't know, Walter. I know, but a
I,
YouTube guy had him as a perfect fit for the Raiders.
I
I mean,
think he's
he,
talking about Walter Nolan, right?
Yeah, I think Walter Nolan I like a lot, but he's a 3 technique. Maybe you can put him if you're going to run odd fronts. Maybe you can put him as like the 4-eye, which is what they did a lot this last year. Is they ran a lot of odd fronts, and he could replace Adam Butler, who ended up being a starter this year. That's just my only thing with Walter Nolan. I like Walter Nolan a lot. I comp him to Ed Oliver, and he's got more length than Ed Oliver does. Ed Oliver might have been a little bit more explosive, but yeah, I like Nolan a lot. You have Wilkins there, and like I know I was talking about with like mid-round guys of having them sit and wait a couple of years before they play and sit behind Wilkins, but I don't know if you want to take your first round pick for a guy that you just spent $100 million on in free agency last year, unless your plan is to move on from Wilkins, which I would. I mean, I like Wilkins a lot too. So, but yeah, I like Nolan a lot. He can be disruptive, but I just don't know unless you're going to change the defense, tweak the defense a little bit to run more odd fronts. I don't know where he fits in with the Raiders and their needs.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, like, is somebody hyping up Aiden O'Connell in the thing? Is that what that is? I don't know. You probably can't see it, Matt. But yeah. Anyways, all right. I was just ask, can't O-line coaches help the OC? Yeah, I mean they can, but you know how it goes. All right, guys, we're out of here. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Give you a little hour live episode recapping the whole Senior Bowl, getting ready for the draft. Of course, we'll be back on Wednesday doing some breakdowns, some draft, and then of course we'll start free agency too, which I think we'll be starting here soon as well. Looking at some of these free agents, who the Raiders going to bring in. I'll probably have to do some Sam Darnold. I get to do some Sam Darnold, Matt. Some quarterbacks, right? Maybe a little Russell Wilson. You know.
Hey, I get the real treat. I'm gonna go back and watch some Kyle Trask preseason tape.
So we'll be doing that, guys, because free agency draft, we're gonna be giving you guys all that stuff, and of course Friday Night Live, the mock draft start next week, I believe, if Glenn is available. So we're gonna start doing the mock drafts next week because I have a bigger idea of the players that are in the draft and make some more intelligent picks here. But so we're gonna start the mock drafts next week, so look out for that on Friday Night Live, and of course hit the subscribe button. Subscribe. We're out of here, guys. Peace.